Good morning, everybody. We want to thank, it is good morning because it's 1 minute before noon. We want to welcome you to Empowering Pastors, Leaders in Training. And we're excited today because we're continuing with our book. I want to encourage you. We're in the book called Bigger, Faster Leadership by Samuel Chand. I would encourage you to go online and buy that. You can buy it from a Kindle version. You can also buy an audiobook version, and you can also buy the hard copy. I challenge you to go buy that. It is a phenomenal investment for you. Also, I want to let you know we have a special going on. I'll bring it right up to you. It is for the Empowering Pastors Conference next year. We have Larry Stockstill coming. For those who don't know Larry Stockstill, he not only pastored a megachurch, but also pastors of megachurches. I believe he has 3 pastors under him that pastor churches over 30,000. So he's going to be with us, as well as Bishop Rick Thomas is going to be with us next year as well, and I'll be speaking one of the days. This is the Leadership Summit, March 19 through 21, 2018. If you will register before 8/25, you get a 25% discount. Let me see, is that what it is? Save 25%. So the discount code is SAVE25. We'd encourage you to do that today. Register for the Empowering Pastors Conference. You get to save money. Also, I'll get all lined up, set up for next year. Larry Stockstill, Bishop Rick Thomas, and myself will be the main speakers, and we know that you'll be blessed. All pastors' wives, I want to encourage you. We have a low registration cost for the pastor's wife, and we actually reinvest all the money back into the pastor's wives. Ladies, pastor's wives, and pastors, if you're on but your wife is not, I encourage you to go to empoweringpastorswives.com. My wife has a tremendous group of ladies that are getting together. There's a private group on Facebook as well. And it's mainly just for pastors' wives. And she won't even let me on there. So, I mean, it's pastors' wives. And you speak and they talk, they encourage each other, build each other. I challenge you to get your wife on that, empoweringpastorswives.com. Today, we're going to be continuing with the Bigger, Faster Leadership by Samuel Chand. We've enjoyed going over different, the cycles of every single ministry and every single business. The entrepreneurial, which is the discovery, the emerging, which is growth, establishing, which is maintenance, erosion, which is survival, and enterprising, or the reinvention of your ministry. Now, whether you like it or not, this is the cycle of every organization, every business, and every church. We're always going to be continuing in this cycle. And there's a need to recognize that you're going to grow to certain levels. We call them a plateau. And when you get to a certain plateau, the issue is not that you're at a plateau. The issue is how long will you remain on that plateau. That is where the majority of churches are in America today. We have most churches in America have plateaued and are no longer growing. They're no longer getting new visitors. They're no longer adding new members. They're no longer increasing numerically, financially, and in any other aspect. And pastors end up getting into that established maintenance mode, and they no longer push for the reinvention. I want you to recognize that at every growth barrier in a church and growth barrier in a business, you have to reinvent. You have to look at 2 things, your systems and your structures. I want to remind you what a structure is. A structure is the group of people that you have with you. The systems are how the group of people work within the structure. And this is the things that you actually have to look at. Now, today was the deadline for your homework. You had 2 weeks to look at your systems and your structures. I want to remind you that if you did not do that, you did not send me that you had done that, then it is a $50 fee. You can send that to me at pastorspencer@gmail.com via PayPal. I'll surely enjoy it. I will spend it frivolously, but I will tithe, I promise you. So today, I just want to encourage you, you have to look at your systems and your structures. Now, we started talking about the erosion or going into stagnation last week. We can't repeat ourselves. But today I want to talk about overcoming obstacles. Failures are where we are moving forward and we stop and fail. And fail is not good. We talked last week about failure is actually established, or what failure would be considered, is established by you. For what one person considers failure, another does not. failure ultimately is not doing the will of God, or failure ultimately is not fulfilling the vision that God has placed within your life, whether it be marketplace ministry or full-time ministry. God has placed a vision in your spirit, and you have to accelerate towards that. In that, you're going to have erosion motions. You're going to have stagnation times, and you have to be able to get off that. So we want to talk about how to overcome those obstacles, and then we want to get into some other aspects today. Number one, the number one thing that you got to do to overcome obstacles is you have to do what? You have to measure, you have to stop measuring the wrong benchmarks.
Yeah.
What's a benchmark? We established it last week, so someone shoot it out real quick. What's a benchmark? A little bit quicker. What's a benchmark? Somebody help me now. What's a benchmark? There are no answers in this entire room full of people. How about online? If you're online, make sure you jump on to the chat, live chat. What's a benchmark?
It's a goal.
A goal. Thank you. I was a little concerned about us all at that moment. We have certain goals, benchmarks, things we want to hit, targets that we want to aim at. Those are benchmarks in our life. Now I want to read this quote because these quotes are very good. This is what Micheal Chan said. Pastors, boards, and leadership teams in churches traditionally focus on the ABCs: attendance, buildings, and cash. These are certainly important, but we often fail to measure factors that reveal the heart and the health of our church. So this is how you measure the heart and health of your church, pastors. Here it is. Your number, as the number of first-time guests in your church, the proportion of guests to regular attenders in your church, the conversion rate of attenders and those who join small groups, and the last one, the most important, is the number of volunteers actively involved in ministry. Why is that one of the most important ones? The people, yeah, that's right. The people that are going to be involved are those that are actually in the vision. They're actually living, working. Remember, a core value is what? Two things.
Your time and your money.
Your time and your money. If someone says they believe in you, but they're not putting any money, guess what? They don't believe in you.
True.
If someone says they believe in you, but they're not putting any time, guess what? They don't believe in you. They can say all they want. The bottom line is this, those two things. Now, here also says about business. In business, executives often look at the bottom line. What's the bottom line in business? Dollars. But they need to observe and measure the intangible elements that lead to excellence, productivity, and tangible results. So measuring the wrong benchmark does what? It means that you're actually looking at something that you would consider the target when it's actually not the target. You can have a large number of people in your church. You can have 10,000 people in your church. Well, I remember we went and visited a church one day. The church ran about 20,000 people. Now, when we walked into their children's department and we started asking questions, learning about their children's department, the one thing we learned was this, is they had over 300 children every single Sunday morning in one of their services. But they actually only had 30 workers. That's it. That's all they could get to get help. Now, I want you to recognize that that showed a problem. Now, for us at that point in time, I think we were running like 400 people, and we had almost 70 workers in our children's department. We sat back, and one of the things we learned was we don't want to do some of the things that they're doing because their benchmark is how many kids are in the classroom, but actually the greater success is how many workers do you have in the classroom, because the more workers, the more investment, the more the kids are going to get it, the more they're going to be overseen, and the more they're going to grow. Also, the more people you have working in your church, the more people that you have investing within your community, is the more that they actually are participating in more than one realm. So we want to challenge you, don't set up the wrong benchmarks. Number two, losing passion for the vision. How many here, if this you have your own business, how many here have lost passion before in your business? Anybody?
How many what?
How many people have lost passion within the business? Yeah, everybody has. I think if you've been in business long enough, the one thing you recognize is there is that constant and consistent reality of having to make sure that the vision is alive in you. I got a quick question for those that are here this morning. What is one of the ways that you keep the vision passionate in your own life?
Prayer.
Prayer. Who said that? Josh said that.
No,
Hi, Josh.
couldn't have been Josh.
Josh. Prayer. Who else? Somebody else. Give me a way that you keep it fresh in you.
Change.
Change. What do you mean change?
It gets stagnant unless we change up.
Start moving
Systems,
things.
people,
Systems, people. Very good. Somebody else? Churches, ministries, departments.
Remaining in your why.
Remain in the why. Okay, somebody else.
Get training
Training. Why does training do it?
because it keeps you fresh and it can help you reinvent those things that you know, but take them to a new place.
Keeps you fresh, reinvent. Somebody else.
Having a confidence,
Having a confident. Why is that for you?
because you can be honest with that person, and just sometimes being honest about things, they can like keep you in check and remind you why you're doing it in the first place when you forget.
Awesome. Everybody does it a little bit different, but one of the main important things of you and I staying out of the erosion, staying out of stagnation, is making sure that we're constantly having the vision fresh in our life. When you no longer, if I'm going to talk ministry, when you no longer get up excited about seeing a soul saved, then you need reinvention in your life.
Amen.
If you're in business, well, if you're in, let's just take tires. If you're in tires and you get up and you're no longer interested in tires, well, then you need a reinvention. If you're doing insurance, you're no longer interested in insurance, well, then you might need a reinvention. Every one of us need to stay reinvented in our life. We need to keep the vision flowing in our lives. The next one you got to stay away from is what? You got it on your list? Unresolved conflict. How many's ever had conflict within your organization? But if you have an organization, you have to have conflict. Why? Why? Somebody said it. People. If you have people, you're going to have problems. You're going to have conflict. But unresolved conflict brings a place into what? Into erosion. Why is that? Because if you have an organization that is constantly bickering and fighting, you're never going to have unity. If you don't have unity, then you don't have forward motion. You're going to constantly have backbiting and bickering within the organization. There's a necessity, if you're going to stay out of erosion and stagnation, to make sure that the environment that your people are working in, the atmosphere, is conducive to moving together as one. I actually went to my insurance company not too long ago, and I needed an insurance card. And so I called up there, and the lady was really rude. Well, I wasn't far from my insurance company, so I actually went there. And I walked in, and she pursed herself up and then walked me down to the lady and said, she can help you. And I was a little miffed because I didn't want to be treated in this dimension since I pay a lot of money. They have not only my cars, they have my house, they have my motorcycles, they've got everything that we have is all insured under one umbrella. And it's like, listen now, I don't want to be treated this way. And the lady who was the owner sent me an email that afternoon. I want to personally apologize for how this person treated you in my office. And is there any way that we can make this up for you? And I said, absolutely not. I just appreciate the recognition and the addressing. And she said she will never do that again. Well, I want to let you know there was probably conflict in their office that day. And if that conflict was not resolved, as I've talked to another business who has another person who constantly is in conflict with everybody in the organization. I mean, they're sitting there, they're going to offend everybody. People stay away from there. Well, there is no way for that entirety of an office to move forward as one. There's a need to make sure that there's unresolved conflict is taken care of. Now, listen, if you are the leader, we must also recognize that Personal attacks are unacceptable. Has anybody ever had personal attacks by your leader? I remember, and I've shared this before, I went to a church, and I was the topic at that church every week that I was there. He stood up and made sure. I recently talked to a young man who was in a church, and the pastor asked their opinion on millennialism. They gave their opinion, and the pastor preached against them on Sunday morning. It's a very unhealthy environment. Yeah, it's pretty. He's probably going to lose all his millennials. And so here we are. You've got to make sure that if someone disagrees with you as a leader, it doesn't mean they're against you. It doesn't mean they're disloyal. And just because someone agrees with you doesn't mean they're loyal to you. You've got to get down to make sure that there are no unresolved conflicts. Another one is too much mercy. This was my one. I have too much mercy. Yes. In every organization, the leader has to not only be the one that is caring for the people, but they also have to be the one that's going to bring the hammer down when it's necessary. I'll read what he says. All leaders wear two hats. Pastors wear the hats of a shepherd and a CEO. Business leaders wear the hats of a coach and a boss. In both arenas, I've seen countless leaders who have found excuses to wear only one hat. Whatever the cause, avoiding reality always creates much bigger problems for the leader, for the team, and for the person who is incompetent or divisive. How many remember the next one is called the Orange Revolution? How many remember that book we went through? Yep. What was the Orange Revolution? What was the main principle we covered in that one? That was getting everybody who is working together to be actually the policers of each other. Getting the team and bringing forth what we call good peer pressure. If you do not have positive peer pressure within your organization, then the leader is it's going to be very difficult for the leader to move the organization properly. You need to have that within each. The next one is lack of personal improvement. This is one we find on a consistent basis with, again, I deal with pastors. I want to ask you all a question, and I ask it all the time. What leadership book are you reading right now? Well, I only read the Bible. Listen, I read the Bible too. But what leadership, how are you developing your leadership skills? What book are you reading right now? Someone shoot me out some names.
$1 Million Coaching by Alan White.
Isn't that a phenomenal book?
Phenomenal.
$1 Million Coaching. Very good. Somebody else?
Coaching, eat your lunch.
Coaching, eat your lunch. Culture, eat your lunch. Someone else?
Bigger, faster leadership.
That doesn't count. Don't stay safe. Come on, somebody else. Yes. Battlefield of the mind. Very good.
Habitudes.
Habitudes. I've never heard of that one. Habitudes. Somebody else. Leadership.
How to build self-discipline to exercise. I'm not kidding.
How to build self-discipline to exercise. Wow. That's actually a book?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
I
Okay.
just need to build self-discipline.
Wow. Wow. Why do we ask this question, and why is this one of the overcoming of obstacles? Because if you, as a leader, are not investing in your life, and you are here, so I just want to give you great kudos. Can you all give yourself a hand clap? All the leaders that are online, give yourself a hand clap. Why? Because you're investing in yourself, but you should also be investing by reading every day. How many of you read something every day besides the Bible? Very good. How many of you listen every day? I do a lot of listening. I love Samuel Chan. I mean, I'm listening. I'm not only reading this book, teaching this book, but I've already listened to it at least 3 times. I love listening to Bishop Rick Thomas. Oh my goodness, he is so rich when he starts revealing. I mean, it's just phenomenal material. All leadership stuff. You've got to invest in yourself. If you're not investing in yourself, the question is what are you doing? So the benchmark of the ministry or company must be clear for the team to run with clarity. And that's personal investment. What are you doing with your team that is moving them towards the vision in personal investment. Now here, as we all know, this was not started for anybody else but my team. We started this every single Tuesday right in my office, and we had more than enough room. We didn't start this for anybody else outside of the building. We didn't start this for online. We started this for my team. And as it grew, praise the Lord, we've been able to minister, and I think we're ministering to over 60 leaders every single week. I love that. But truthfully, this ultimately is to push my team. I want to brag on my team. My team are great leaders. They really are. They are not great leaders by accident, because for the last 4 years, they have been pushed every Tuesday. For the last 4 years, they have been demanded to read books. For the last 4 years, I've penalized them at $25 every time they haven't done their homework, even my own children. Why do I do that? Because they're only going to become what you make them. And as a leader, you've got to make sure that they have personal improvement plans. The next one, deadlines and dates. If you don't have deadlines and dates with your team, then you will never overcome the obstacle of always sliding back into stagnation. Well, why is that? Well, I think it's important to read it. A vision without a plan is just a hope. And a plan without a deadline is only a wish. I'll read it one more time. A vision without a plan is just a hope. A plan without a deadline is only a wish. Deadlines are the direct revealer of progress. You cannot sit down and see progress unless you have deadlines. Now, one of the difficult parts about deadlines is you're always dealing with different types of people within your organization. In church, we deal with visionaries, and then we deal with, or what we call, leaders and managers. Leaders, many times being the visionary, it's difficult to give them a deadline because they get so easily sidetracked. If you give a manager a deadline, it's very easy for them because their life is governed by deadlines. They eat deadlines. But a leader is one who many times will become so fragmented that they never hit a deadline that's brought before them. There is a need to make sure, we talked a little bit about it last week with the destiny arrow, and could you go get that for me, Pastor Obi, please? I want to show you the destiny arrow just so you can actually see it, where you must have deadlines. We went through that last week, where you have your 30, your 60, your 2-year, and so on forth goals. You have to have deadlines. Without a deadline, you're not going to get people to do stuff. When a person is unwilling to comply with deadlines without being disciplined, then the entire team will see that the individual is actually running the organization. My problem was I would give people one chance to do a deadline, then I would extend it because they asked for it, and then I would extend it because I understood their excuse, and then I would extend it, and ultimately it would never get accomplished. To overcome stagnation, to overcome erosion, you must have deadlines. You've got to put people in a position of accountability. What you do not inspect, you cannot expect. There must be the moving forward. And the only way to do that is when people, especially, they get irritated when you start pushing them. But what you're actually doing to them is you're allowing them to rise to the occasion. And if they're unwilling to rise to the occasion, then even though they got you to that point of success, they probably cannot take you to the next level. The next one is lack of support from leaders. We must, as leaders, let those who are making the vision happen that they are important and appreciated. Has anybody ever read a book, read any books? This is created by Dr. Johnson. And for those who are online, this is probably the best way for you to see it. But this is one thing that I believe Pastor Obi's already put our order in. We're getting a new one. And we're going to put this up on my wall again and make it occur. Why? Because this demands accountability. This demands that people are going to move forward. This demands excuses to be thrown away. This demands you to hit your goals. And if a person is not hitting their goals on a consistent basis, then you ultimately know they're an awesome person and you love them, but you cannot keep them. You will never stay out of stagnation unless you're moving forward. If you're not moving forward, you're dying. You've got to move forward. Thank you. Has anybody ever read a book on creating a good environment for your staff? What do they call that?
Culture.
Culture. I hate that word. How long does it take you to create a culture?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. What culture, if I walked into your business today, or you said it right now, what is the culture of your business right now?
I'm not going to be accurate, whatever they say.
What's the culture? Give me one.
Oh,
A successful culture.
successful culture? People are engaged in the vision.
People engaged in the vision. What is the, if I walked into your office and I asked your people what the culture of the company was, what would they say?
Service and relationship.
Service and relationship. Is that what they would say? Or is that what you say?
What I tell them to say.
The question is that the actual culture that's there?
It should be.
But is it the culture that's there? I don't want you to answer. I'm just pushing. Somebody else, what's the culture?
Well, I work by myself.
You work by yourself. That's a really easy culture to have. I like that culture. Jay.
You know, we have a different culture in every location we have.
You have a different culture in every location. You have what, how many locations?
7.
You have 7 locations. So each one has a different culture?
Mm-hmm.
What's the healthiest?
By,
Give me an example of the healthiest culture.
You're okay.
what do you mean by an example? Like how they act, what they do? I don't know.
If you walked in and someone said, what's the culture of this place? What would they say about the culture? Is it in welcoming? Is it customer service oriented? Do they care about their customers? Are they rude? Is it just get them in, get them out?
Our vision is kind of reversible. Everyone always looks towards the customer. We kind of say that our customers can't be happy unless our people are.
Okay.
So we really try our best to keep our employees happy, because if they're not happy, no customer's ever going to be happy.
Right.
And I'm not saying we do a great job at that. Some locations do very good, and we have other locations that I'm embarrassed to say, but I dread going there because it's like, oh, they're just, and it's kind of led by the leader that we have there. And we struggle with that a lot. We definitely do. It takes a long time to build it, or to turn it around, or even change it.
It takes a long time to change it. And the transformation factor or the reinvention factor is one that's very uncomfortable, because it immediately attacks your systems and your structure. Remember what structure is? Structure is the people that you have there. The people that you have there, as Jay was saying, really, they create the environment. But truthfully, the culture is supposed to be created by the leader. We set in motion what we want. How many of you have ever come into a situation where you have somebody, this is the culture you want, but you recognize that somebody's unwilling to give it? In that, there has to be hard decisions made. And in that, if you're not willing to make those decisions, then you're going to find that there's a stagnation that will always come. The last one that you got to watch out for and make sure that you're overcoming an obstacle is leaders want results now. Most leaders are consummate doers. They can't stand to wait. They can't stand stoplights. They can't stand reports. They don't want to take the time to make phone calls. They only want their progress toward their goals. They only want to see results. I love results, but how many of you know sometimes you got to stop and you've got to, well, there are 2 types of verses in the book of Revelation. You have chronological and parenthetical. Sometimes you got to go parenthetical with your time in your office to make sure that you stay out of the erosion. And what does that mean? Stop, forward motion. Let's look at where we are. Let's get a true evaluation. Let's see the details of what's there, and then let's fix it and move forward. If you don't ever take a parenthetical moment, then you're going to find that you're going to constantly slide into the same mode. Why? Because you haven't fixed the problem. If you don't fix the problem, last year I was supposed to do a road race. I was going to go with David Zink. We were going to ride 30 some odd miles for Cure de Tour, I think they called it. And so I took my bicycle and I had it on the bike rack on the back of the truck, and I was backing into the parking spot. I mean, I saw the post, but I didn't think I was that close to the post. And my wheel, it didn't take much. I hit it with my front wheel and bent the rim. And so I took it off. I didn't know I bent the rim. I took it off, and it wasn't a big bend. It was a small bend. But I needed to come down the hill in Watkins Glen. And I recognized that it would probably not be real overwhelmingly wise. Now, going straight, it really wasn't that big of a deal. You'd hear a rub. You'd hear a rub on the brake. But that was pretty much it. But coming down that hill, I knew what would have occurred. The moment I would have stepped into momentum, the exaggeration of the bend in that rim would have made it out of control. And there are times within our cultures we have got to sit back and say, listen, this is not going to work. I've got to change this, or I'm going to stay in erosion. I'm going to stay in survival. Going slow doesn't show. But the moment I pick up speed, there's going to be a problem and an issue. In that, if we don't pay attention, we're going to remain where we don't want to be. I've never seen a true leader not want to move forward. You've got to move forward. If you're okay with not moving forward, then you're not a leader, you're a manager. There's nothing wrong with being a manager, but you aren't the leader. You need to get somebody who can lead, because you have to move forward. Whenever you see defeat, whenever you see failure, you've got to look at it exactly the way it is. You got to be honest, but you've got to use it as a trampoline to be that opportunity. Whenever we've come to times where it's been difficult, I've always looked at our impossibilities not as impossibilities. No matter what anybody has said to me, I refuse to see them as impossibilities. I see every problem as my opportunity to launch to the next level. Why? Because if I'm here, it's foolish for me to keep going backwards. I've got to move forward. So I've got to use this as an opportunity on a bouncing point. We were just talking this morning. We had an event not too long ago. That was something that had to happen. It was uncomfortable, and it was a shifting in leadership. And I was talking to Mackenzie, and I said, what did you learn out of this? What good things did you learn out of this? And we were able to go over the situation. We were able to take this failure, this defeat, or as it would be seen, and we were able to take it as a springboard of what to do, what not to do. What was it? What could we take advantage of from this scenario? We've got to move forward, and that's the one thing that's got to drive you. Forward motion has to drive you. We've got to have tenacity again. You know, there are a lot of leaders that don't have endurance. What's that? A drive. Huh? Boldness. Come on, give me more.
Excitement.
Tenacity. What?
Kind of like an excitement.
And excitement. Okay.
Persistence.
Persistence. Probably one of the better descriptions. A lot of leaders that today don't have persistence. We start off, but we don't finish well. You have to have a tenacity within your spirit that even when you have times of failure, even when you have times of stagnation, even when you have times of erosion, that there's a tenacity within your spirit that you are never going to give up. Talking to a leader just recently, and I said, it was a pastor, I said, were you called there? And they said, yes. I said, then you can't stop. You've got to get into your spirit. Listen, if you're a marketplace minister, if that's what God's called you to, it doesn't matter what the economy says. It doesn't matter how bad it looks. It matters if this is where your hand is, stop looking back. What happened? What happened when Lot's wife looked back? How many people constantly look back? You got to have some tenacity within your spirit. You got to have some drive within your spirit. You know, just recently I was looking at we're looking at some financial things, and nothing's bad, but it's not where I want to be. And I had to actually contemplate, how do I say this? I had to contemplate canceling something. And I just said, no, it's not going to happen. Why is that not going to happen? Well, number one, because it's God's business. Number two, because it's God's responsibility. But number three, if I start canceling things because of finances, then I'm always going to cancel things because of finances. I've got to get some tenacity within my spirit and get my head to the ground, maybe do a little bit more prayer time, and I've got to call those things which are not as though they already are, because I do not have the luxury of being a person who's going to give up. I have to have a tenacity within my spirit. How about Elisha with Elijah? Elisha said he was going to go all the way with Elijah. Elijah getting ready to be taken away. And all of a sudden he comes, and he comes to the sons of the prophets. They were the preachers of those days, by the way. And they come, and they all knew Elijah was going to be taken away. And the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, leave him alone. Just come on now. You know he's going to be taken away. And he said, all of a sudden Elijah said, listen, you stay here. Elisha said, listen, as long as you're living and I'm living, I'm not leaving your side. It didn't happen once, it happened 3 times. Where even the prophet told him, stay here. And he said, what do you want? He said, I want a double portion of your spirit. And so he said, if you see my cloak, if you see my tunic fall, then you will have that double portion. But if he had stopped with the sons of the prophets, if he had stopped even with Elijah himself, then he would never have had a double portion of the spirit of Elijah, and he would never have done double the miracles that Elijah had done. Many of us give up way too soon. You've got to be a pusher. You've got to be a driver. You've got to make things happen. And let me tell you, God loves it. He loves makers. He loves people that are willing to shake things up. He loves leaders. Why? Well, nowadays, there's not many leaders. We've drugged the whole generation of leaders, by the way. I just want to say that out loud, my personal opinion. We've drugged all these kids we've called ADD, ADHD. We've drugged them all up because we don't want to discipline them, put them over our knees and whoop their hind ends. We've drugged them up so much that now they're not leaders anymore. I mean, you want some kids that have drive. You want some kids that aren't cause problems in the first grade. You want them. You want kids at 9 months old that you got to spank. You want these children. Why? They're drivers. They're drivers. They're leaders. And instead of disciplining our leaders these days, we've drugged our leaders. And now they're not going to be leaders. We've destroyed almost a whole generation with some really good drugs. You've got to have that never give up mindset. Determined never to step backwards. My wife and I have just determined that here, you know. It's so easy to become in a place of erosion and just maintenance in church. It really is. It's very easy to do that. You know, I'm making an okay salary. You know, I can live in what I'm making. And my wife's a great budgeter, man. I live really well with what we make. I live better than people that make a lot more than I do. Why is it? My wife's a great budgeter. And I could be happy with that. I'm happy with that. But, you know, I can't be happy with that. My wife and I have always decided that backwards is never an option. That not moving forward is never an option. And you heard me I told Carla this, if we're going down in a ball of fire, baby, because we are never, ever going to stop moving forward. And you've got to determine that in your life.
Yeah.
As leaders, as we're in many times the enterprising motion, we've got to make hard decisions. Everybody say hard decisions. A leader's job is to do what? Make hard decisions. This is a leader's job. As a leader, it's not your job to have everyone like you. As a leader, it's not your job to have everybody cheerlead when you walk into the building. As a leader, man, you've got to make hard decisions. And when you're in the process of reinventing, because you've gone through the normal cycle of erosion, now you've got to reinvent the organization. You're going to start coming into making decisions that are unpopular. You've got to look at systems, and we talked about that. You've got to look at your system. Do you know how easy it is to change a system? Well, listen, I'm not saying it's easy in the aspect of getting people to do it. I'm not talking it's easy to change a system and everyone's going to be excited about it. But a system is nothing but a thing. It's nothing but a process. You can change a system and it not cost you a lot. But what is very difficult for a leader and the hard decisions in the enterprising process is when you got to start looking at your structure. The structure is the people you have. People are your greatest commodity. People can be irritating. People can make your life uncomfortable. But it's all about the people in your organization. When you and I come to this reinvention process, one of the most difficult things is the changing of your structure because they're the people that are in your organization. They're the people that you love, the people that you respect. You know their children's names. You know that you've been there for them. They've been there for you. They've been loyal to you. But many times in the reinvention stage of your organization, you have to make decisions that some of the people that are with you right now, they brought you to this location, but they cannot bring you to the next location. And in the reinvention process, you have to, in your mind, in your spirit, as a leader, genuinely look at the process and ask yourself a question: can they take me to the next level? If they do not have the capability, if they do not have the intuition, if they do not have the training, that would be your fault. But if they do not have the innovation to take you to the next level, as much as you love them in this reinvention process, you have to start making hard decisions that you're going to either have to do something, you're going to have to do something with them.
Don't you think there's too many biases in that as a leader?
There's always a bias, and there are ways around that. There are companies that will actually come in and reevaluate your entire staff. The difficult part of that is recognizing also that you are still the headhunter here. Because even if they tell you to get rid of them, if you choose not to, they're not going to go. And this one guy, they came in to do that, and the guy, the outside consultant said, you need to get rid of this woman. It happened to be the guy's mother. He had to fire his own mother.
I mean,
You're a hard woman. But honestly, this is where it gets difficult in the reinvention stage. We're talking about, you and I, bigger, faster leadership. And in the bigger, faster leadership, we want to stay on the top end of this cycle as long as we can. We want to make sure that we are not remaining on plateau, but we're going to the next level. And the only way that in the reinvention stage is to recognize that as much as you love people, as much as you love individuals, some of these people are awesome, but they're not going to get you. They're not going to get you where you need to go.
Maybe they're in the wrong position now.
Well, we'll get there. And that's exactly it. A hard decision you have to make.
You have to benchmark the job as well as the person, and these people just benchmark the person.
Well, you can't benchmark a person without benchmarking the position, because the position is where that person has capability of success or not.
I agree, but most leaders don't look at both sides of that coin.
If they don't look at both sides of the coin, then ultimately they're in not survival mode, they're in implosion mode. They will actually destroy themselves. They'll do it all by themselves. Every person within your organization, you have to decide whether you're going to retain, reassign, or what's the last one?
Please.
This is the basic decision. Release is much nicer than termination, it sounds like. Every time you come to this place of reinvention, looking at your systems is not that difficult. Again, that's the processes that we get things done. But the structure is what is the most difficult decisions for every great leader. Why is that? Because if you're a great leader, you've taken time to invest in people. You've taken time to love people. You've taken time to know them. You've taken time to encourage them. You've taken time. And listen, they are part of your family. But in every reinvention, you have to look at every single employee. You have to look at every single person that's on your team, and you have to make a decision. Can I retain them in that same position? I said this years ago. If you don't grow, you gotta go. If you don't grow, you've gotta go. I don't believe you have to release anybody. I believe that everybody has the capacity, especially if you're born again. Every person has the capacity to learn. Every person has the capacity to increase. Every person has the capacity to generate within themselves enough intuition and enough understanding and enough giftings to be able to move forward even in your own assignment that you're in. But there are some that just won't ever do that. And you have to make a decision. Can I retain them there? If you cannot retain them, you have to ask yourself the next question. Can I reassign them? And if there's not something you can reassign them in, then there's only one left conclusion, and that is you've got to release them. Now let's talk about this. If you have thought about firing them, you probably have to. Because at this point, the only thing that you're doing is making up really good reasons in your head to keep them. You have to make a decision in your heart, and this one's been a real hard one for me. The real hard one for me is I care so much about people, but I have to make a decision. Do I submarine the whole for the few? And that's hard, because that means there's always casualties. Whether you like it or not, in war, there are civilian casualties. There are people that are innocent that get killed. People that are in the wrong location get killed. And whether you like it or not, even though they're family, you love them, you have to make a decision not based on the family. You have to make a decision based on, can they take you to the next level? And if they can't take you to the next level, you have to make the hard choice. And the hard choice is not to keep them. The hard choice is either, if you can't reassign them, you've got to release them. It's very difficult in a church. In the church world, you foster relationships. This is what you hire pastors to do. You hire pastors to build relationships with people. So they actually are interacting. They're actually moving amongst the people even more than the senior leader is many of the times. And their relationships with the people sometimes is even stronger than you have because they're interacting with them on a consistent basis. And when you have to make a decision to release them, your effect upon that situation is not that one person. It's not just their family. Now it's all the people that are surrounding them. How many of you in this room have ever had to make a decision to let somebody go? How many of you struggled with that decision because you knew it was going to affect their children? You cared about them, and that brought some difficulty in your life. I want you to know that that is a demand on your heart. If you are ever going to reinvent, if you're ever going to stay growing, this is part of your life. You have to learn how to do this hard thing by letting people go. You have to learn how to move them, which makes them uncomfortable, makes them unhappy, and sometimes they cannot, they will not take a reassignment. They will not take the realignment. They will not take that, and therefore they leave, and they don't leave nice, they leave mad. And when they leave mad, there's only one thing that people do when they leave mad. They make sure that you are maligned. Someone's got to be the bad guy. You're the evil dude. Yes.
Do you really believe that like everybody has the capacity to do everything?
Do I really believe that everybody has the capacity to do everything? I really believe this, that if a person is in that position, they're in that position because they already have had the capability of doing it. If a leader puts somebody in a position that they cannot do something, then they're not really a good leader anyways, or the person's in the wrong seat of the bus and needs to be shifted. But if they're in the right position and they've grown that organization to a specific plateau or a level, the question comes when you're reinventing is, can they take me to the next level? If they cannot take you to the next level, then there's a reason for that. And it's usually because they don't want to. Because we can all learn. We can all learn. Listen, I've had to learn. I've never been at a church this size before. How did we get here? Well, because I consistently, constantly am challenging myself to learn. I was up at 11:30 last night on my cell phone I know it's late for me. Cell phone last night, looking up 750 barrier, how to overcome it. What's it look like? You know, what are the things I got to look for? What am I going to have to overcome? I think I was on 15 websites last night reading. I was just reading. Why? Because I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to increase. I need to reinvent. I need to do these things because as much as we are successful in this region, as much as I would look at this church and say it is a successful church, as much as we are soul winners in this church, and we have done some great things, and we are literally, outside of the Catholic Church, the largest church in the entire county. Man, we've got, if you look at us from the outside, even the business world, and what this place is worth in the short amount of years we've been in existence, as a nonprofit organization, we are successful. But you know what? We're not successful enough because people are dying and going to hell. We're not successful enough because we're out of room.
Yeah.
So therefore, there must be a reinvention to go to the next level. Yes.
What if you're in your reinvention stage and you have...
I need you to talk a little bit louder. I'm sorry.
Okay, what if you're in your reinvention stage and you have an employee that's got a vision, but you're not ready to take that step? And the leader says, well, I'm not going to utilize your vision. I'm not going to utilize it, but it's a good idea. You're just not ready to take this step. How would you handle something like that?
If a person is on my team and they have a vision, well, actually, their vision always is a support of my vision because I'm the leader. Yeah. If that is not true, then ultimately they need to come into submission of the ultimate vision, because anybody's individual vision always must, if you're in that organization, comply with the main vision. If the leader themselves don't see where that vision is going to take them, then they'll never go there. People say to me all the time, well, I'm going to go to this church to help the pastor. You're not going to that church to help the pastor. You can't help the pastor. The anointing flows from the head down, not the feet up.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to fix him. That one lady told me, she says, I'm going to go teach that pastor. I said, you're not going to teach that pastor. You're under that person's authority. They're not under your authority. It's like you going into a college professor's classroom and saying, I'm going to teach the college professor. How long are you going to last in that classroom? Not long. You know, so if a person has a vision that the leader itself does not have, then that vision will never happen. It will never move forward. It's got to be in the heart of the leader. It can't be just in the heart of the people. Now, there could be divisions within every organization. And each division can have a vision that must build onto the vision. But it is never in and of its own. It can't be. I don't know if I answered it or not.
In a way, yeah, you did. It's just more along the lines that it's in the same, let's say I want to make $1 million next week, just throwing it out there. I want to make $1 million next week. I got 10 people out there that's willing to make $10,000. Now, each person has a different vision to make that $10,000. It goes along with the vision that I have, but it's not a move that I want to make, per se. It's somebody wants to change a menu, or somebody wants to do something of this sort. That idea is really good, but I don't want to put it on my menu.
Then it doesn't happen. Okay. Your job as a leader is to make sure no one's painting the arches blue. The vision comes through you. The vision comes through the leader. The people that are under the vision do not have the right to make the vision. If the leader doesn't have the vision, then they're not a leader. They have to have vision. Each department can have, and given liberty by the general leader, can have, and you should be asking your people for fresh ideas. But if that vision never is in the leader, then it's not going to happen. Because the leader leads. The purpose for the leader is to go to the future, get the vision, bring it back, grab those who are with, and move forward. So if the leader doesn't have that, then it doesn't have a right to go forward.
But you certainly don't want to stymie creativity on the people that work with you. So I mean, there's another way to handle it. You could say to somebody, hey, you got a great idea, but it's not the proper time, so you don't crush them.
That'll cause corrosion. If you crush their idea, they decide they're not going to feel good enough, and that causes an unhappy.
Absolutely.
Right.
But if the leader doesn't grab a hold of it, then it's not going to happen. Honestly, you should be meeting with your people. I mean, we're going to be meeting this afternoon. We're meeting this afternoon as a full team, and we're getting together for one reason. What are the better ways that we can create communication amongst the team? Mr. Redner's leading the conversation. I'll be in the conversation. He asked me not to overtake the conversation, and I won't. But it's going to be very exciting because we're going to be talking in and amongst the team, and everyone's going to have different ideas, fresh ideas. We're getting together as a team for 5 or 6 hours within the next month, and we're going to be talking about every system that we have in the church, where we're missing it, what we need to change, what needs to go higher, what needs to be reinvented. And the creativity of the team is imperative. But if I, the leader, don't buy that creativity, well, then it's not going to happen. Here we go. Let me finish out. Leaders have to decide to retain, reassign, or release. How many of you as leaders have ever had to reassign? What was the most difficult part about reassigning somebody?
Knowing where to reassign.
Knowing where to. I think one of the most difficult things I've had when I've had to reassign is not allowing them to think that they're getting demoted.
Right.
That's easy. The difficult part is when you're reassigning somebody and you actually are demoting them. I mean, Jay would understand, you have somebody that's a manager of a store and you're going to make him an assistant manager because he's not cutting it as a manager. So that's not a pleasant reassignment.
That's not a pleasant reassignment.
But I think, though, that even in the church world, and we as a team, we just kind of went through that. There was someone that was actually promoted, and they thought they were being taken down because their identity became in that role that they had. So I think part of that, so that part is true. But I think also there's another part that says when you reassign, can you cast into them the vision of where you see them? Because no matter, even if you give them a raise and all, if they don't see the vision, then they are not going to like it. Or they will just perform just to go off of a checklist, but they won't be performing as well as they did in that lower impact role.
Absolutely. That means you got to set benchmarks. You know, what are you expecting out of them? When Corey came, it was very clear. This is what we expect out of you. He had a job description. He had benchmarks. This is what we need from you. This is what's going to happen. You're going to need to build a team. You're going to need this. He's still playing catch up.
Almost there.
Almost there. But this is where we had to set benchmarks for when he came. In a reassignment, you have to make sure that they understand their benchmarks because it's going to affect them that you've moved them. I remember when we had our big shift when Dr. Johnson was here and we shifted 2 people. Actually, one person shifted themselves. The difficult part even about them when they shifted themselves, I became the evil one in their choice of shifting. They chose to resign and not to be reassigned. And the reassignment would have been great. They would have enjoyed it. But there was no reassignment because of their personal resignation. Even though they resigned, they still had to make somebody bad. Listen, leader, you have to be willing to be the bad guy. You have to be willing to be talked about. You have to be willing to be lied about. You have to be willing to be hated. Because if you're going to reinvent, it means you're not going to make everybody happy. even if it's just a reassignment. And it might also be, if you set the new benchmarks for those that you're going to retain, they might not be happy with you either. The cost of reinvention, the cost of staying out of erosion is always high. And not everybody, not every leader is willing to pay that price. Let me tell you, it is not a fun price. It is not a fun experience. The last termination we did, 5 months later, we still feel reverberations. 5 months. That's not a week. That's 5 months still feeling reverberations. We've got to align ourselves with an understanding. These are hard decisions, and if we're going to stay out of erosion, we have to look at our systems, which are easier, but we have to look at our structure.
Question.
Yes.
So some people like find their value in ministry, and then once they're like reassigned or if they step out of ministry, they kind of lose their salvation in the process. How do you I guess it's not really up to you to make sure that they stay saved, because it's in the end it's their decision, but do you really want them in ministry if you kind of feel like that's going to happen anyway?
Well, the goal is always to have people that are skilled. You want people that are skilled and can take you to the next level.
But what about saved?
Well, I mean, if you're in a church, they have to be saved. Jay, that's not a big deal for you, right?
Right.
Yeah, he does not have on his application, are you born again? Hi, Sophia. Hi, everybody. This is my granddaughter. If you don't know her, she's just invaded the training.
Okay.
Go over to Daddy. Two things you got to look at. We're going to end with this. Is you've got to look at, in these hard decisions, you got to look at their attitudes. And their capacity.
Define attitude.
Attitudes are the emotions that are willing to be released within the work environment. Good example, snotty. We've been working with a local hotel. And let me tell you,
Amen.
wow. I don't know how that person's behind the front desk. Not sure. But let me tell you, if they wanted to go to the next level, if they wanted to go 4-star hotel, she'd have to get fired.
Isn't that behaviors and not attitudes?
No, because an attitude is an evidence of a behavior. Attitude comes from how a person thinks and feels and believes about themselves. A behavior, semantics. Behavior and attitude. Attitude is a behavioral action, but it all comes out of the innermost part of the person.
So attitudes inside behavior is the reaction of the attitude.
Don't be speaking French to me. Say it one more time.
So the attitude is the internal, and the behavior is what comes out from the attitude.
Sure.
The behavior is what you see.
Behavior is what you see, but it all starts with your attitude. It's inside. We've got to know that the inside of the person is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you can have somebody that's skilled, but they have a bad attitude. And they can't take you there. I've given this example. You know, I've been doing this so long. I'm so sorry for saying that. So just be patient with me. Pastor Mary Edlin had a pastor on staff who stood up on a Sunday morning and said a joke. Her congregation was 80% minority, 20% Caucasian. Well, it was not a good joke. And so that person's attitude and actions caused them to be terminated because the African American community would no longer accept from them. They were eliminated from ministering to that whole community, which was pretty much 80% of the church. All because of an attitude and a behavior. Thank you, I'll use that word. I want to look more at capacity. I asked if you were reading a leadership book because it has a direct impact on your capacity. If you are not in a leadership book, if you are not training yourself, if you are not stretching yourself, then your capacity does not remain smaller, does not get bigger, it only remains smaller. And let's be real, in the majority of pastors, I don't mean to be sharp, but truthfully, the majority of pastors don't ever get training past Bible school. They never get leadership training.
True.
And so therefore, they lead to their capacity, and the capacity is small. That's why most churches are small. That's why most businesses are small. Most businesses are small, not because they don't have an idea or invention or capability that could bring them to a higher level, but they choose not to develop themselves. When you are making these hard decisions to retain, reassign, or release, you've got to look at their attitude and their capacity to see if they're going to be able to take you to the next level. You are not going to get somebody with a 3-star capability to take you to a 4-star hotel. And if they're unwilling to change, then you've got to let them go. And those are the hard decisions. And every one of us have to be in those. If you're a leader, let's just say you're leading a department. Susan's recently taken over an entire children's department. She has hard decisions to make. Because there are people that are in that children's department that some of them have been there. I mean, they've been there since the beginning. And they're great people. They love God. They love the children. But they do not want to go to the next level. Well, I'm sorry. I thank God we have 140-ish children per week inside the building. But that's not enough. That's not enough children. We've got to do something different, which means if you do something different, some people are going to have to be retained, some people are going to have to be reassigned, and some are going to have to be released. And thank God she's going to be the bad guy and not me. Yay!
See, success.
Choices. Every one of you have choices. Josh's business is pretty new. How long have you had it?
A little over 2 years.
2 years. In that 2-year stretch of time, how many people have you had to let go?
None.
None. How many have you had to reassign?
All.
You've had to reassign all of them?
I think he's on drugs. Can you ask him again?
How many people have you released?
None have been released.
They've quit?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had one quit.
One quit. Wow, that's pretty good in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That really is. That's really high.
But we've also grown from 2 employees to 6.
You've grown from 2 to 6.
Correct.
I wouldn't be bragging though.
I am bragging.
He is bragging.
That's because he doesn't understand yet. That's okay.
Yeah, he hasn't fired enough yet, eh? Henry, how many people have you released?
Can't count them all. No, I've been a manager, supervisor, probably 40 years. I mean, I don't remember how many.
I think you're only 45.
Well, I am. I'm actually 39. I don't know, a couple dozen in 40 some years.
Couple dozen in 47. How many of you had to reassign? Have you reassigned more than you've had to release?
No.
No.
So can I say just 2 more things?
Yes.
Number one is.
A little bit louder.
Yeah, number one is I'm not sure if I would agree that it's any easier in the world, like Jay or Josh and I, to release somebody than it is in the ministry, because you do develop relationships with people in your business.
Yes.
So I don't think that's any easier anywhere. And the second thing is, I would strongly suggest people think twice before they reassign. It is very difficult to overcome, and we've mentioned some of those reasons already. Even I think Mackenzie said, even if it seems like a promotion to them, people don't take it that way.
That's right.
It's almost easier to cut the cord than to reassign. Very, very difficult.
Last question. How many times have you had to reinvent?
Just in the last 90 days, 4 times.
4 times in 90 days.
a few times.
Quite a few. More than 10. More than 10?
Depends on if you're talking myself personally or.
Oh.
But yeah, more than 10.
More than 10. Ministry-wise, departments. Pastor Dan, how many times have you had to reinvent? At least 5. 2 times for the young adults already in a year and a half. Pastor Obi, Bible school, how many times have you reinvented?
4 times.
4 times in 4 years.
But reinvention comes knowledge that you need to reinvent, because some people keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Well, that's the issue. That's erosion. The reinvention is recognizing, listen, I'm at a plateau. I've got to move up. And moving up means reinvention. It means you got to do things differently. We recognize in the Bible school that doing 2 semesters is not going to be the greatest opportunity to keep our students. So Pastor Obi has now, we've changed it from being 2 semesters to being a tri-semester school. So they're home less and they're in the school more. Why is that? Well, because we find if they're home for a elongated period of time, they very rarely come back. We've reinvented. Get used to reinvention. This is your homework for the next week. Ready? I want you to write down in the last 5 years how many times you've had to reinvent and the why you reinvented.
Not just a personal or just.
Personal or ministry. And the why. I want the why. Why do I want the why? Because I want you to identify the plateau. How many times have you reinvented and why? And then just for your personal knowledge, you don't have to, this is not part of your homework, but what did you do to reinvent? What changes, hard decisions did you make with your structure and systems to take it to the next place? I think if you do that, you're going to challenge yourself to see even where the next one is. One of the most powerful things you can do is start forecasting rather than just reacting. Being a forecaster means you can see the reinvention necessity before you sink deep into erosion and survival. So if you go back over the last 5 years, you'll be able to see through your systems and structures the different levels you've had to go to and rise to. Okay, I've got to end. Thank you all for watching online. Prayerfully this helps. Remember, if you can get just 1 nugget in 1 month, that means you come 4 times, walk away with 1 nugget, you're richer. Amen. If you will, their food will not be here till 1:30. What time is it? We have 15 minutes. And we want to invite everybody over to eat with us. It is going to be Olive Garden, and it will be awesome. We love everybody online. Thank you for watching Empowering Pastors. Remember, pastors, you'll get your wives connected at empoweringpastorswives.com. And also, if you would like to make sure that you get your discount on Empowering Pastors Summit for next year, by August 25th, you have to do this. And the keyword is save 25, save 25% off of registration. EmpoweringPastors.com. I love you. Have an awesome day.